Henshin Inspection presents Writer Tears. What divides us? This is MJ. I'm an author, I'm an artist, I'm an analyzer. Find all my work at mjmunoz.com. I will be discussing The Weak, the Strong, and the Secrets of Black Sun, Episode 1. Kamen Rider Black Sun, Episode 1 originally aired, streamed, October 27, 2022. The writer is Izumi Takahashi, or is it supposed to be Izumi? Yeah, I don't know. It's either Izumi or Izumi. I may have copied it down wrong. A weird fun fact is that Yuya Takahashi and Kazuya somebody wrote and directed, respectively, the last episode of Kamen Rider Geats episode 8, and then we have on this episode of Black Sun a Takahashi and a Kazuya working on it as well, which really trips me up, so excuse me for that. Anyway, so Izumi Takahashi is the writer of Black Sun Episode 1, and the director is Kazuya Shiraishi. Sheesh. Anyway, so I'll start off right. I'll start right off with the weak stuff, and get ready to crucify me if you're one of those people. I think that Aoi said moms when she meant to say parents in her UN speech. I think people will mistake that and claim she has gay or polyamorous parents, but I think it was a translation error. I think the lady at home is not one of her moms. I think she's taking care of her instead while her parents are on the run in China. I think it will cause debate among fans in the US, some of whom are very pro-LGBT and some of whom aren't and are jerks about it. But, this is a weakness of the show. It is meta-textual, meta-universal, whatever. It's outside of the show, but it still is a weakness because while I so much appreciate the fact that there are bits of English dialogue in this show, which, anyway, I love that. I think it's amazing, especially with Oliver Johnson later. Sorry, I think that's his name. Anyway, it was an error in the production, and it could cause issues, so I'm calling it out as something weak or not so great in the episode. Next thing is some of the nuance was lost with the kaiju protesters near the beginning of the episode. I think we should feel more sympathetic towards them, but they were framed as almost losing control and not being able to keep themselves in check at all. That gives too much credit to the kaijin genocide party. I don't think it was meant to. It feels like an error in presentation. And again, if you want to accuse me of being bigoted and hating protesters and whatever, 1, you can get out of here. 2, if you don't want to get out of here, stick around because I am talking about nuance. And 3, I don't know. Just give me a chance, man. I'm trying to explain things and talk about how I feel. And, I have that right, and so do you. So if you want to comment on it, please do. But, let's be respectful because I'm not saying anything evil. If you can just set your biases aside, you can actually hear what I'm trying to say. So anyway, moving on. If the ketamine is just to be edgy, I reject it. You can do whatever drugs you want to because you're free to do what you want with your body. But we know nothing of this world, and I can accept it if the drugs suppress Kotaro's powers to hide him or something like that, either to have him work against Gorgum, I guess it's Gorgum, or at least not for them. So, they have no Bahiko prisoner, so if he's doing drugs, and he's been doing drugs for 50 years to keep from being detected by them, so he's not also imprisoned by them, I accept that. It just seems weird. They could have done it in any other number of ways. I think. Anyway, going on to the strong stuff. Aoi is a great focus character. She is a solid blend of idealistic and caring with toughness and edge. She is more of a typical hero. She wants to see good and right done and is willing to fight for it. So that's pretty cool. The anti-kaijin party is repugnant. Why is that a strong thing? Because I think they're supposed to be repugnant because their position of genocide is morally reprehensible and evil. The Prime Minister is not to be trusted. He seems good at first, but his scheming and coldness to the kaijin shows real malice. Again, this is a well-constructed evil character. I do not condone his actions, but it is entertaining to watch him, and he's part of the draw. The truth of what's going on with him is part of the draw in the show. Next, the kaijin designs are great. I love seeing them in the crowd scenes. The simplistic approach is cool, and I am glad that those, like, just masks and gloves can exist alongside the spider and hopper kaijins I have written down, because I think those are amazing designs. The transformation effects are grotesque and cool. I love the body horror aspect of it. Even like when the fly guy transforms, his skin from his human face or whatever is like on his neck. It's like on the right side of his neck, all flattened out because the fly head has burst out of that, and that's nasty. It's interesting though, because the spider, when he transforms, it's a different type of transformation where it's more like the spider subsumes the human face, like the eyes are poking through his skin, and just like the shape of his head changes, but it's not like his face is tearing apart. And then like Kotaro has his transformation, it's like the kaijin armor or whatever kaijin being is being like overlaid over his human body. That's what it seems more like. So I don't know. There's a reference in a later episode to like different levels of kaijin basically. So I wonder if that's kind of a thing that's being illustrated by how they are able to transform. I don't know. I love the spider and hopper fight. The speed and brutality were cool, though I was shocked by the decapitation. Kotaro and Nobuhiko are getting a fresh take. I'm happy that they have gone a different direction, and I like that there is potential for them to be brothers in the course of the story. That should make the drama and tragedy more intense. Excuse me. I wish we could have seen Kamen Rider Black and Kamen Rider Shadow fighting alongside each other in Kamen Rider Black, but it never happened. And I think that's what we're going to get to see in the show, so I'm really stoked about that, even though, like I said, it's going to make things probably more tragic and more dramatic at the end, but I'll take it. And then next thing, Kotaro is happy to beat up homeless kaijin and assassinate 14-year-olds. That's new. I don't like it, but it is who he is, and I wonder what that means for the rest of his story in the course of the show, because it should mean something. Otherwise, it's just edginess for the sake of edginess, which I do not like, if you hadn't picked up on that already. So, I have this secrets section, and this secret section is less about, it's basically my format is bad stuff, good stuff, because I want to get the bad stuff out of the way, and then like puzzling things or things that I have questions about. And this is secrets because, the show is already out. All 10 episodes were out day one. So I'm sure, well, I know of some people who like binged the whole thing. I am not going to be able to do that anytime soon. And I'm sure these things will be answered in short course, and either, they will or they won't. And I've already actually watched episode, I think to the end of episode 3, and some of these things are answered and some of them aren't, but I'm still asking them because I'm trying to approach each analysis with a naive perspective of, hey, this is my first time watching it or whatever. Although, I did notice something going in, watching the first episode a second time after having watched episodes 2 and 3, and it gives me some questions to ask farther down the line. But I'll hold off on those, and I'll just get into these, secrets of Black Sun so far. And, to some extent, it's just like things that they're not telling us about because that's the way the story's being structured, and I'm sure we'll learn more about them later. So it's not like deep projection into the future, because the show's sort of already over. The story's already set, and I'm not going to change that by speculating. I know I addressed this earlier, but what's with the ketamine? I want to know the secret behind that. And, is Kotaro a villain? How many people has he murdered for hire? He seems to be an assassin. Someone said, I read in the synopsis that it said bounty hunter, but I mean, he was clearly going to crush her skull or rip her throat out or something with his human hands until he saw the Kingstone, and it stopped him because, it has some sort of power over him, which, and this isn't on my list, but are there more than one Kingstone? Because in the beginning of the episode, supposedly each of them had a Kingstone put into them, and it was pulled out of that big vat, which had the, like cryogenic chamber or whatever, and then they're interrogating Nobuhiko, asking him where the Kingstones are. So, do they not know that the Kingstones are in their bodies? Gorgum, does Gorgum not know that Nobuhiko and Kotaro have a Kingstone in their bodies? Or, because in the original, there was just the two Kingstones. It was the one red, the one green, the one for Shadow Moon, the one for Black, or Black Sun. And when one of them killed so this is spoilers for Kamen Rider Black, they were supposed to fight to the death, and whoever killed the other would rip the Kingstone out of his brother and put it into himself, and the Kingstones combining their powers together would enable that individual to become Creation King. And more spoilers for Black, or Kamen Rider Black, is that Shadow Moon defeats Kotaro, but he doesn't rip out his Kingstone. He leaves it there because he's like arrogant enough to say he has enough power without it to be the Creation King and such. I believe is exactly how it went. And I just don't understand. Are there more than the 2 Kingstones in this? Because it seems like they were there already, unless Gorgum doesn't know where they are. But then again, if Kotaro had one inserted into him, because he was the one on the table, having the stone inserted, why does Aoi have one around her neck now? It doesn't make sense. Unless, of course, there are more of them than we know, or than we think from the original lore of the original show. Anyway, I want to know, do kaijin really smell? And do kaijin think that people smell? For a while, I don't know if it was when I was vegan or it was just I was eating a ton of garlic. My dad at one point at work pulled me to the side, and he's like, "Hey, you stink. Like, I didn't know what's wrong with you, but you smell for some reason." And it was just because I was eating like tons and tons of garlic. But again, I might have been vegan too, so there might have been other factors. I'm not saying I was gassy. I just mean like one point I remember my skin smelling like you could smell garlic coming out of me. I love the smell of garlic, but people don't like the smell of garlic on other people or coming out of them, I guess, which doesn't make any sense to me, but whatever. Garlic is delicious. Anyway, moving on. Thankfully, I think I no longer smell. So, that's my concern and not yours, I suppose. Next thing, what makes kaijin? Where do they really come from? If you can become a kaijin against your will, is that really a different race of being? And the reason I ask that is because the kaijin genocide people, who I think are disgusting, say that kaijin claim to have existed for, I think 5 million years, and that they evolved or emerged or whatever before humans did. And he says that's preposterous that they were here before humans. And, I don't know either way. We don't have enough information from the show. But if you can be turned into a kaijin, if there's such a thing as a manufactured kaijin, then what's the difference? How is there any difference? Other than, like when that guy, got upset and turned into a fly kaijin in the beginning, he threw that cop 20 feet and like he hit the cop car and the cop car skidded too. So like the kaijin transformation is incredibly powerful, but then like Shinosuke gets knocked around very easily when he's not transformed by like the spider, and I feel like he got beat up on other oh gosh. Episode 2. Anyway, I don't want to talk about that right now. Anyway, he should be stronger, but is he only stronger when he transforms, or is the spider and the fly particularly strong, and the birds or whatever that Shinosuke and his family are, they're considerably weaker kaiju? I'm sorry, not kaiju, but kaijin. And I don't know. Like, there's a lot of questions, and a lot of things don't make sense. And there's like a little slight, like, I thought about COVID when the Prime Minister was like, now we've assured everybody that after lots of investigations and research, we are not responsible for the existence of kaijin. They do not originate in Japan. We've done a lot of research. We checked a lot of bats and pangolins, and there's no kaijin among them, and we're fine. And there was no wet market here in Japan. We did not create the kaijin 50 years ago, but like it kind of seems like maybe they did, especially because the Creation King is sitting in a lab and he's got all these tubes hooked up to him. And I was thinking, if this is what the Creation King's life is like, and if they have to manufacture heaven from him, then like how would that have worked in the past? How would that have worked 5 million years ago? How would that have worked 100 years ago or 300 years ago or 1,000 years ago before they had this type of technology? That doesn't really make sense from a like logistical storytelling point of view, unless this is the Creation King at the end. Like I don't know. I don't really know. Like they get that gross liquid out of Creation King, and it looks really nasty. Which, by the way, when he turns into a human, is he a regular size human? Kind of like how the little guy, Baraom, when he transforms, he goes from being his normal small stature to being like 6 or 7 feet tall. Is that how it works with the creation king? Is he just a regular sized person, or she? And then when they transform, it's giant grasshopper man who can barely move. And like, can they barely move because they're dying and their energy is weak? Is it because that big what is it? I guess I was gonna say thorax, but it's abdomen that all the heaven juice is coming out of, or what? And then like, why wouldn't those just be created as like carbuncles? Because how like your your eyes get that crust in them. That's a crystal that forms from a liquid, right? And like the same thing with like snot, mucus type stuff. It can turn into a crystal. They could have stones or crystals coming out of a character like naturally, just being part of their body and part of their body's process. And like people could dig that. Like the parasite or a pearl is it's like a fossilized covering over of like something that infects and irritates the is it clam or oyster? One of the two. Whatever. Which one it is, clam or oyster, that pearls come out of. It's this weird thing, but it's held as like precious and it's beautiful and it's a gem or like a jewel type thing. So like, why not have it just like naturally come out of him as opposed to like needing all this technology? Unless the kaijin are only like 50 years old. But then again, how does that factor in with like the king stones and the eclipse and all that? I really don't know. There's a lot of questions to be answered by this show, and I don't know how deep they're going to get into the lore as opposed to just like the personal stories of these people, which, I mean, I like the personal stories, I like characters, but I would also I'd like you to not have lore that doesn't make sense and that you refuse to explore and give me questions or answers to when you've raised questions, because that's just irritating. And last question is, before I get into giving you the official, well thought out, well planned out theory, or not theory, but like review of the episode that you'll be able to find over at superherotie.me if or when that gets published there. But by being a listener of Rider Tears and Henshin Inspection and following me here at mjwinners.com, you get exclusive first access to things like that. So, check that out. Perks. You get perks with me. Anyway, what divides us? You have the kaijin living in family groups together. They seem very happy. They seem like they're poor working class people, but like they're happy with each other. You've got Aoi, who's friends, and I think her school is like all mixed kaijin and humans. And they, preach tolerance and things like that. And, something I really liked is that she asked the prime minister to create a world. I thought she was going to say, will you pass a law? Because she was talking about the kaijin hate speech and different, attacks on kaijin, various attacks on kaijin. And she said to him, and I thought, here it comes. She's going to say, make a law where the government's going to crack down on people who are anti-kaijin, which you've heard me throughout this review. I'm sympathetic to the kaijin, but I don't know that there should be a law, or I don't think there should be a law passed to support kaijin, just like I don't think there should be a law passed against kaijin to stop them from hurting people, other than the ordinary law, like they can't transform, for example. They should be free to transform if that's what their bodies are like and if that's what they're naturally like. It's their right to be able to be who they are in whatever form or shape that takes, as long as they're not harming others. And anyway, my point is, she asked the prime minister, and this was so good and powerful and moving to me, she asked him to create a world or like a society where people are peaceful. And I took a screenshot of it. Let me look for it real quick because it was good. Please create a society where there is no hate. That's the solution. That's the solution. All of these problems exist in this world because there is hate and greed and selfishness. I don't know that I want to go Donnie Darko and say that the spectrum is love and hate and that's all there is. But you could love yourself to the exclusion of others, and that can cause you to act cold, distant, aloof, or hateful towards others. You can hate discomfort. You can hate having to work hard. You can hate certain things to such a degree that all of your motivations, all of your actions are motivated by that, and you will do evil things in order to avoid that which you hate. And because you love yourself so much, you'll justify every hateful action that you take in order to keep your creature comforts. So, create a society where there is no hate. What divides us? I think the hate and the selfishness are really like, what divides us is the focus on the self. For whatever reason, these anti-kaiju people, or kaijin, sorry, it's so close. It's so close. Anyway, that'd be like if we called giants and we called mutants antos or something like that. Anyway, or like giants and monsters. Those two words are two completely different words in English, and I feel like that's the best way to say, like, kaiju would be giants and monsters would be, kaijin or kaizuningen, even, modified humans. Anyway, I'm getting off on a crazy tangent. I will leave it alone because I do not know enough about Japanese to speak authoritatively on that, so I'll stop. But anyway, I think, like, the selfishness is what divides us. If people wanted... It's so hard to say. The hate and the disgusting call for genocide, or detestable, deplorable, evil call for genocide from the anti-kaijin people doesn't really make sense. I see where they're coming from because they're afraid, because they don't understand. Why can't they bridge the gap? Why can't they put their differences aside? And really, I think, people want conformity on all sides and in all respects, in many respects across all walks of life. People want conformity because the conformity means that other people are like them. And when other people are like them, they feel like they can trust them or control them or deal with them in such a way that they don't have to worry. And I think that's what the idea is. So when they encounter people who are contrary to them, they become angry and hateful. Whether that's because they... just to get real political, whether that's because they say they like Elon Musk and they feel happy about Twitter because it's now going to be a free speech bastion, or I can't think of what the opposite thing is right now, or they don't want to bake a gay wedding cake or whatever. Like, those sorts of things, like trying to force other people to be on the same page with you doesn't work, isn't healthy, breeds hatred and breeds anger. But am I saying that we need to have I think they call it vulcanized society where everybody's split off into little enclaves? I don't know, but I don't think people should be forced to be together if they don't want to. Does that mean I'm pro-segregation? I didn't say that. However, it has been said recently by people that that you wouldn't suspect that segregation would be good because we want to have white people away from us. I'm not white, by the way. We want to have white people away from us. So I want to live in a Mexican-only neighborhood so I don't have to deal with honky or with white people, right? If you want to live somewhere where you're away, like if you wanted to do that and you just moved somewhere where there were no white people, is that evil? No, I don't think so. How could it be? But if you were in a neighborhood where there were white people, and you drove them out by burning down their homes, attacking them, harassing them, violating their rights in various ways, verbally abusing them, that would be evil. That would be wrong, right? Do you see where I'm coming from here? This is good. I like not being white because I can sort of say stuff like this, and people have to think twice before they call me, Nazi or whatever. But the things that divide us racially or by religion or whatever are a lot smaller, I think, than the things that unite us. Which I think that's what Aoi is saying, and she's saying, we fall in love, we have. Are sad, we eat the same foods, like we have all these commonalities. And like, if you can tolerate each other and focus on the things that unite us and make us common, and one of the things that makes us common is that we can all agree upon having a culture and a society that doesn't tolerate violence and oppression of people, and that promotes like justice and peace and if not and cooperation. And that doesn't mean you have to like the people that you're working with. It just means that you have to deal with them in a positive manner, in a cordial, positive manner, enough to just get stuff done and then move on from there. That's, kind of what I'm saying. That's kind of what I'm proposing. And like, is that the answer to this? I mean, maybe, spoilers for shows like Kamen Rider Kiva, but at the end of it, they don't decide that they have to do genocide against the villains. They decide that this villain race can be dealt with in a peaceful manner, and that they can learn how to coexist with each other without having to have it be a war of genocide and have the Fangires basically murdering people. They decide they can not do that. They can just choose not to do that, like we had seen throughout the show, that for decades there were Fangires who were not murdering people and eating them. They could find an alternative food source. And it's clear to me that kaijin don't need to eat humans to survive. At least your common kaijin doesn't. Maybe they can, whatever, but then couldn't they just eat other kaijin? Humans could be cannibals and eat cannibals, or eat other humans if they needed to. But, we choose not to live in a world or in a society, or our culture has developed so that we're not doing that. Probably because then you would have to choose who gets to eat who, and that would lead to more division. That would lead to class division and class warfare and things like that, which would be worse. So, not worse, but it just, it wouldn't work. It would not be a well-functioning society. So, anyway, I think selfishness and greed and hate are the things that divide us. And I think, like at that protest, there was a bigoted cop who was a big jerk, and then there was a good cop who was like on the side of the kaijin, and he was basically telling them things like, I'm legally obligated to say this, and I cannot legally help you, but I'm telling you this, and then they all ran off so that they wouldn't get arrested and they wouldn't be hurt. Like, he was looking out for their best interest, not even though he was a cop. He was a cop who was looking out for the best interest of the kaijin, and then there was another cop who was working with him who was not looking out for the best interest of the kaijin. He hated the kaijin. He had an adversarial stance towards them. He didn't want to support them. Then you have the cop who shoots the fly guy. He was like traumatized by that, and I'm not saying that, killing somebody is not good. Killing somebody is not an easy thing to do. It's traumatic. There's been soldiers throughout various wars who were traumatized, who were traumatized from having to kill people. Whether it's murder or killing, however you want to divide that, in a war, I'm not really sure. But they had to kill people or they were going to be killed. And they did that and they survived, and they have guilt now not because they survived and their friends didn't, but because they had to shoot that guy in the rice field in order to come back home to their families. Because their government put them there, right? Anyway, that cop was put in a terrible situation. So was that kaijin. He asked the cop to put the gun down. He tried to run. He didn't know what to do. He was screaming, help me, help me. And his fellows told him to run away because they didn't want him getting shot, and him running away caused the cop to shoot him, even though he had, quote unquote, only thrown another cop against a police car. But he was provoked and in such a state of like derangement or whatever because these people were talking to him. But then again, if somebody says something to you, does that give you the right to act out violently? Him transforming wasn't a problem. Him showing his, fly kaiju face or kaijin face wasn't a problem. That's not morally wrong. Him attacking somebody after that is wrong. And I don't know. That's why I said that I think the protest was framed kind of improperly, because it makes the kaijin genociders look like they have a point and look like maybe kaijin are too dangerous. Maybe you need to take away their right to transform. Maybe you need to take away their ability to, use the weapons that they have rights to, which are their, kaijin strength or, whatever projectiles they may have or whatever. But you can't do that because you have to trust people to act responsibly with the power, the ability, the talents they have, the items they possess, the things that are in their possession. And if they don't, then you punish them. You don't punish somebody preemptively, or you don't ban something preemptively because you don't like the outcomes that can happen from it. That doesn't make sense. That's not justice. That's not right. But I think the fear of what could happen if the other guy does something you don't like or that you don't want to have to deal with is a core part of what divides us. Anyway, yeah. And I think Kotaro, I have a theory. This is literally a theory. I don't have spoilers on this. I think Kotaro and Nobuhiko were dealt with as they were manipulated by their fathers and had these stones implanted into them to destroy the Creation King as a hedge against him and his machinations. And they were victims of that system. And they had this destiny or responsibility or whatever thrust upon them by their fathers because they were afraid of what was going on. And instead of dealing with it head on or trying to take it on their own, they went this other sneaky route around it, possibly to seize power for themselves, to be the fathers of the new Creation King, or maybe just to destroy that system and stop things from, persisting. I don't know yet, and, we won't know till later on in the show, but I do hope we find out about that. So, anyway, I need to wrap this up. I'm going way, way too long. Episode 1 of Kamen Rider Black Sun gets a 9 out of 10 from me. And here's why. Well, I'm gonna skip. You can read the full text here, but I'm gonna skip through it and just tell you. I'm gonna skip through part of it. This world is ugly and dirty and messy. It sadly rings true to our world. I can see instances where both kaijin and humans are in the wrong. The conflict is not black and white. There are many shades of gray to consider. I don't really like anyone but Aoi, her kaijin friend Shinosuke and his family, and other common folk around them. They are good people looking to make the world a better place. They are sympathetic figures in this world where there is more going on than we know. I am drawn in by the mystery of what is really going on, and I think puzzling all that out is going to make the show very enjoyable. While the narrative is nuanced and difficult to fully grasp, the presentation is beautiful. The horrific cold opening makes me feel sympathetic towards the boys being victimized by a system beyond their control. They represent the divide between human and kaiju, even though they both end up being kaiju, as they reach out for each other, unable to close the distance. The dramatic score sings the sorrow that haunts Kotaro and the broken world. The visuals are powerful, from the kaiju protests to the tent city to the cozy kaiju house in the slums. These different places show how divided the world is. Aoi's school and home life are accompanied by warm, homey music that give a real sense of peace before the hatred and pain of how little people value life abruptly shatters that tranquility. I think this story is going to go to some very dark places, and I think it will become clear to us that those who seek to wield power over others are the real monsters. Kotaro was going to murder Aoi. He is no perfect hero, like he was in Kamen Rider Black. While Shadow Moon was an outright villain in Kamen Rider Black, I feel a lot of sympathy for him. Gorgum held him imprisoned for 50 years. Will he truly be a villain here? Will Kotaro truly be a hero? What does that mean in a nuanced world like this? I'm excited to find out. And now for Story Over Everything, my lessons learned from Kamen Rider Black Sun Episode 1 are this, or my lesson learned is this. Sympathy for a character can let them get away with a lot. I feel so badly for what was done to Nobuhiko and Kotaro, and they both feel like victims, that I am willing to overlook some of what they are doing. It helps that I know I don't know all the facts, but they could turn out to be really bad people, but I'm still willing to assume the best of them. So, to put it in a bullet point, this lesson learned is wound your protagonist at go to garner sympathy and support from the audience. They will want to see him win, even if he has an ugly side. Again, check out Superhero Time, or superherotie.me, for the text review, which should publish on the 4th of November, which is Friday. That's 1 week after Kamen Rider Black Sun came out. And go over there. There should be more reviews for Kamen Rider Black Sun. Go to mjmunoz.com for all of my stuff. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. It was funny. They called the show controversial in the promo material for it, and I didn't think it was going to be controversial until I saw that it was playing on Black Lives Matter a little bit. And now that I've watched the show, it is controversial. There's no doubt about it. And I do appreciate how bold of a stance they're taking and how bold they're going with the directions of the show, and all the different wild things that they're doing, like making Kotaro basically a villain. And, there's a lot of interesting things going on. There's a lot of nuance, and it's very interesting. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. I don't know if my future or my following reviews are going to be this long. I hope to make them a little more succinct, but we'll see. I kind of don't know how to handle this show, because it's so, it's so big. It feels so serious and so, something. So I'm having a difficult time figuring out what exactly to say or do. But, I think I enjoyed this analysis of it. I think I did a good job. I think I did a good job handling the nuance. And again, I would love to hear, your perspective on what I had to say and your thoughts on the show as well. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Until next time, this is MJ. I leave you with peace and blessings. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, you can find more at mjmunoz.com, as well as my entire library of analysis, art, and fiction.